24/7, 365. The fantasy season never dies. Welcome to Every Day is Draft Day. Presented by Champions Round.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to the latest edition of Every Day is Draft Day. I am your host, Dan Turner. Joining me as a, pinch hitter. We'll go with that. Jeff Haseley. What's up, Jeff?
Hey, man. Dan, thanks for having me on. Appreciate coming on in short notice here in place of Stephanie. Hopefully I do her well and
yes.
Can help you out at the same time.
I appreciate it. Yeah, it's wonderful having you on, Jeff, as always. So today on the show, we're going to go over some news, basically. That's a recap of the news that's happened in the past couple of days. Basically, how we've had QB musical chairs / Dominoes, and other bits of fun news. So let's just jump right in and get started. So I know we want to talk about Deshaun Watson, but we'll save that for next.
The elephant in the room, right?
The elephant in the room. The elephant can stay in the room a little while longer. The first thing I want to talk about is basically how you had QB dominoes this past week, where Carson Wentz was traded from the Colts to the Commanders, then Matt Ryan was traded from the Falcons to the Colts, and then the Falcons signed Marcus Mariota. I got it all right. Awesome. So do you think that kind of QB movement will be, I guess, quote unquote, normal going forward? Or is that just a special case of everyone of the whole Deshaun Watson fallout?
Well, I think a lot of it is a result of the Deshaun Watson fallout, but I also think that they are temporary solutions to a problem that all those teams have, right? And that's finding the franchise quarterback. So looking at Washington also, I mean, they may have jumped the gun on Carson Wentz, spending roughly what amounts to 2 third-round picks for Wentz, where they could have potentially gotten Matt Ryan for just 1 third-round pick.
Yeah.
So, like the Colts did. I think the Colts are kind of the winners here because, one, they don't have a first-round draft pick coming up, so they don't have an opportunity to take a quarterback as early as others. And they wound up getting Matt Ryan. I still think that, I mean, he's kind of in the sunset of his career, and I think that he's kind of traveling down the mountain as opposed to moving up. But is he better than Carson Wentz? Is he better than Phillip Rivers? Is he better than anyone that they've had since Andrew Luck? And I think that answer is yes, still. So the Colts, in my opinion, I think kind of won that side of the aftershocks that happened with the result of Deshaun Watson deciding against his thoughts and electing to go to Cleveland versus New Orleans or Atlanta or even perhaps Carolina, even though they were kind of in the back burner of his choices. But I still think that Indianapolis, Atlanta now having Marcus Mariota, and then Washington now having Carson Wentz, I don't know. I think that's more of, like I said, a temporary Band-Aid type of solution to a problem that is likely going to continue, moving forward. I don't know if any one of those three, maybe Marcus Mariota, right, with his background with Arthur Smith from his Tennessee days, maybe he could turn that into something in Atlanta. But Atlanta also doesn't have the complementary parts to go along with it, at least not yet. And
right.
They're sort of rebuilding. It's hard to tell who's rebuilding and who's just trying to do what they can with what they have, right? And
right.
I think we kind of see that in some of these quarterback situations.
No, I definitely agree. I think that, the Falcons going with Mariota was a good signing for where they are right now as a franchise. Dealing away your franchise quarterback that that took you to the Super Bowl and basically starting over. You lost Julio, Ridley's gone for however long he's gone for. So your wide receiver room is pretty much empty. You do have Kyle Pitts, and you re-signed Cordell Patterson, but it's very much a team in transition. So I think they were smart in that they didn't spend a ton on QB. I don't think they were smart because thankfully they now have the biggest dead cap hit in the history of the NFL, beating what the Eagles incurred on Wentz with Matt Ryan. I think it's something like $54 million in dead cap just for trading him away, which is crazy. But the Colts turned out well. They're in that position now where they need to win now.
Mm-hmm.
The Jonathan Taylor isn't going to be Jonathan Taylor forever. Running backs fall off a cliff much
Right.
sooner than we all expect them to be. Michael Pittman's there. They have some decent tight ends. So the Colts definitely did the right move for where they are. As for Washington, I never understood why they traded for Wentz in the first place. I mean, you had court like Mariota and even Jameis Winston that were out there in free agency that you could have signed that are comparable to what Wentz is going to give you at this point in his career. There was no reason for them to trade, draft capital to the Colts to get him.
That was a little bit of a questionable decision there, but they were just desperately looking for quarterbacks. I remember reading about them literally courting every quarterback possible, and Russell Wilson included, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they came away with Wentz. Is that their first choice? We'll never know. We'll never know that, right? But I wouldn't be surprised if they also decide to take a quarterback with their draft pick. Mm-hmm. What are they? 10th, 11th? I don't remember what pick they are offhand, but they're right around that mark. I don't know. It's possible. I don't know if there's a lot of Washington Commanders fans who really applaud that move. Mm-hmm. So could Wentz kind of be this year's version of Sam Darnold? A stopgap type of quarterback? Sure, he could. Could he have a rebirth in Washington? It's possible, but this is Carson Wentz too. I mean, also very often do we see him injured, and he hasn't really been the same since that 2017 season when he tore his ACL at like week 14. Oh, yeah. He was having an MVP year.
He was going to win MVP if he didn't get hurt.
Correct.
I will never back down from that statement. He was definitely going to win. Absolutely. But yeah, they did, I think, what was best for them. He is a good stopgap. Maybe they, internally they figured that he would be better than any of the quarterbacks in free agency that were available. And in that case, good on them. They have a really good team around them.
Yeah.
It's better than a lot of the Eagles teams that towards the end of his career there. So it'd be interesting to see. He has to stay healthy.
Right.
And if it doesn't work out, I can see all these teams,
Plus, they still have Taylor Heineke.
Yeah.
They still have him in their back pocket. And if Wentz gets hurt, or when Wentz gets hurt, I guess we should say,
right.
At least they have him. And they are also not the worst team in terms of quarterback situation right now. I mean, look at Seattle with what they have currently. With Drew Lock, right? So I mean, that's just one example, but
right.
They're not the worst by any means. Heck, their backup could be a starter for some teams, I think. Mm-hmm. But absolutely. It is what it is, and maybe if they're looking for someone, we hear this often. A game manager, don't make mistakes. Let's see what we can do. Let's use our personnel the way we want, and kind of control the game. If that's indeed what they want, then they could potentially get that with Wentz. Plus, Wentz has the ability to run too. I mean, it's not like it's out of his ability or realm to run for some yards as well. Mm-hmm. So, do we see it a whole lot since he's been injured? Not particularly, but I mean, it's still it's still part of his skill set.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely not as good as it once was, but it's definitely still there. And you bring up a good point about they have the number 11 pick. They can still draft, a quarterback. If Kenny Pickett is there, do they take him there? Yeah. I don't expect Malik Willis to be there because after his pro day, he's probably going to go number 1 overall now because he threw the ball about 7,000
That's a topic
feet.
For another day.
Yeah, that's another topic.
We could have a nice, good conversation about that, but no, we won't do that right now. We're not opening up that can.
Nope.
Of shaking up a can of soda right there.
Open at a later date.
Yes.
But now getting back to the elephant in the room to get back on track. The big piece, the biggest domino that fell that everyone seemed to be waiting for was Deshaun Watson. He eventually, was he going to Atlanta? Was he going to New Orleans? Was he going to Carolina?
Yeah.
And then he ended up somehow in Cleveland. Cleveland basically traded, they traded 3 firsts, a third, 2 fourths for Watson and a 6th. So,
and in my opinion, Yeah, in my opinion, Atlanta shouldn't have been in that conversation whatsoever. I think they were trying to lure him in. Hey, come home to Georgia. Here's what we have. We have no wide receiver core, but you know what? We're Atlanta. Maybe you would like to come and play with us. And they pulled out the red carpet and everything, and they just did not have any business doing so. And in the same process, they kind of alienated Matt Ryan, and which all led to this falling out of such. But yeah. Anyway, I interrupted you, and I apologize.
No, that's okay.
You were saying about Cleveland and the Cleveland decision.
Yeah. Yes, but to quickly go back to your Atlanta point, it's amazing to me that they went after Watson like that with no real backup plan. I mean, did they expect Matt Ryan to be happy about that?
No, I mean, I don't know. It's almost like they were like, hey, I have a girlfriend, but here's Miss Universe. Right? Maybe she'll say yes, and I can just say bye, old girlfriend. You're kind of old. And
while they're flirting with the old girlfriend in front.
So that wasn't
your old girlfriend. It's like, what are you doing?
That wasn't very cool. And Matt Ryan saw it as such, and he called him on it. And that's what we have now is the exit of Matt Ryan and that $40 million cap hit. Yeah. But here's what I think happened, Dan. Yeah. I honestly think he was planning on going to New Orleans. Mm-hmm. Atlanta comes in. They're like, hey, come see us. Oh, really? Atlanta? Maybe. But I think he was going to New Orleans. And then Cleveland said, didn't he say no? He said no to Cleveland. He's like, no, Cleveland, you're out of it. No more. And then Cleveland's like, what if we offered you $230 million and we'll give it to you all, as guaranteed money. What do you think Watson's going to say? No, he wasn't getting that from New Orleans or from Carolina or from Atlanta.
From anybody, really.
From anybody. He probably would have gone and played for the Toronto Argonauts for $230 million guaranteed.
Yeah.
And so he's thinking, oh, Cleveland, huh? Or at least his agents is telling him this, right? Mm-hmm. This is all agent talk anyway, right?
Right, yeah.
So he's thinking, 200 Cleveland? All right, Cleveland, I am your man. Let's go, right? It's exactly how I think how that kind of unfolded. And money was the motivating factor here.
Yeah,
for Watson. And I don't know if there's a single GM in the NFL that would do that move in the future or even with him now. It's like Cleveland's like, it's like they're like, hey, watch this. Let's see what happens. Yeah. We've got money. It's only money.
It's only money. It's only
if you really want him, we can get him. And then there's all this backlash between the fans of Cleveland. Some are like, yes. Some are like, no, man. These 22 counts of sexual, violations and such, right? And now we're seeing that fall out too.
Yeah.
Plus, he could still have a 6 or 8 game suspension. Mm-hmm. It's like, as a Panthers fan, I was actually happy, pleased, and thrilled that the Carolina did not land him, that he didn't accept the interest of the offer coming from them. I think Houston would have. I think Carolina offered the best deal, even though we probably will never know what it is, because then those players will be like, well, that's how you feel about me. And then, okay.
That situation repeats.
Right. We don't want that. But yeah, so that's what I think. Now, if you want to talk about fantasy implications of Watson in Cleveland, we can do that. That's a fun conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And to start us off, I think that, everyone is going to be like, well, he went to Cleveland. But if you take a look at Cleveland's roster, they actually have a really good offense he's stepping into with Chubb and
Kareem Hunt.
And they just traded for Amari Cooper, and they have Donovan Peoples-Jones and David Njoku and Harrison Bryant. It's not in a decent offensive line. It's not like he's going to a place where he's going to struggle.
And their defense is good too, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, they're a playoff team, and with Watson, it elevates that even more, right? So that's the opportunity. I long knew that Cleveland was the best football opportunity for him, and then when that money came in, he's like, Cleveland, you're back in the conversation again. Yeah. Where do I sign? Sorry.
Right. He goes from being out of the conversation to winning right at the finish line.
Completely. Teleport. Completely. No, but you make an excellent point with the roster that surrounds him now in Cleveland. Strong running game, I think they kind of need to retool their offensive line a bit because they lost J.C. Treader.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see who else. I'm trying to remember. It was they let go of Austin Hooper.
Yes.
And now Njoku is the main guy, as well as Harrison Bryant, which, it doesn't seem like they have very many holes.
No.
They really don't. And with the draft still coming, sure they gave up their picks to Houston, but they already have a pretty decent baseline of talent. So,
So where does that leave like Watson and the main players like Cooper and Chubb for fantasy?
And also Jarvis Landry, did he re-up with Cleveland? Didn't he? I thought I remember hearing that.
I didn't hear it. Let me look that up.
Maybe not yet, but they're definitely talking about it for
he's
sure.
A free agent.
Is he still a free agent? Okay.
He is.
So I'm sorry, what was your question?
So, with knowing that he steps into a decent situation, where do you put like the fantasy value of like the main players, like for example, Chubb, Njoku, Cooper, and even Watson himself? Where do you rank them now?
The interesting thing is I don't necessarily see any of them as first round redraft material. Maybe Chubb, maybe at the end of the first round. I would much rather have him in the beginning of the second round, much like last year, because you have to still consider the fact that they have Kareem Hunt, and he's going to steal some of that thunder. Now, is Chubb definitely capable of putting up numbers? Absolutely. And I'm not going to say don't take him at the end of the first round, but if you look at their wide receivers, Amari Cooper, you're probably not going to take him he's probably like a third round kind of guy, third or fourth round guy if we're talking about redraft. Tight end, the team is going to do well. I'm not sure from a fantasy perspective. I don't know. Could Cooper be a top wide receiver one in the top 12? It's possible, especially with Watson, but they're also more of a running team.
Yeah.
And we have to keep that into consideration. Same thing with Ryan in Indianapolis. They're a running team. I don't know if we're going to see those, 40, 42, 45 pass attempt type games that Watson's been known for on Houston, because Cleveland has a defense and they have a running game. Whenever you have that, you don't necessarily need an arm to win games.
Right. Yeah.
And if that's the case, then the way that you look at the game, how it all unfolds, the game script for the entire season is going to point more in the direction of less passing, more running, lower numbers for Deshaun Watson as far as a fantasy asset.
Right.
Is he still a top 10 quarterback? Yeah, I think he is. And would I be surprised if he's not? A little bit, but at the same time, it all depends on what their offensive strategy is.
Right. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, like when it turns into November, December, and it's Cleveland weather and Cleveland.
Yeah, no dome, no dome here, Deshaun.
Right. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see. I think weather is a little bit overblown when it comes to that kind of quarterback, but it will be interesting to see how he adapts to those kinds of playing conditions and how the offense is a run first offense and how they adapt to having that caliber of quarterback now. That necessarily you don't need to lean on your running game. You can lean on Watson's arm and the weapons that he has now. So it'll be interesting to see the kind of balance they strike.
And they're going to have to play Pittsburgh twice, Cincinnati twice, Baltimore Ravens twice. I mean, that's a tough division. That's maybe the second toughest division in football.
Yeah, it's not
next to the AFC West.
It's not the Jags anymore.
No, it's a good point. It is not. And we'll see. Will Cleveland kind of adjust their offensive philosophy, their strategy, their game plan for Watson? Because we saw Clemson do it. We saw Houston do it. Bill O'Brien knew exactly what to do. Bill O'Brien. I just call him Bob. That's his nickname, right?
Yeah.
B.O.B. So could we see Cleveland do that? Yeah.
You think so with the amount of money they paid him.
Right. But then you've got Chubb and you've got Hunt.
Yeah.
And you got a running game that is strong. So that's going to be interesting to see how Cleveland kind of approaches the Deshaun Watson talent. and how they're going to run their offense.
Yeah, how they're going to.
We don't know that yet. What's Stefanski going to do?
Right. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see. Absolutely. So, as a thread coming from Watson, his contract, 230, fully guaranteed, easily blowing away the most guaranteed money ever given to a quarterback.
Yeah.
And this raises, some questions now. Do you think that the fully guaranteed deal is something that will be used going forward more often? Will more, quarterbacks, or even, will it trickle down to other positions? Will it turn into something like the NBA, where a lot more deals will be fully guaranteed and maybe less time? Is that something that you think will be possible? Because, with Kirk Cousins doing it, okay, it was Kirk Cousins, but now, Deshaun Watson, with all the problems, that he's having currently, and Cleveland still, saw it fit to give him the entire contract guaranteed. Obviously, you can just say it's Cleveland being Cleveland, but still, other teams and other agents are going to be pointing to that now and saying, hey, if Deshaun Watson with all his issues can get it, why can't my guy?
That's the biggest point right there, is other agents are going to be saying that, because they're like, hey, this is what we saw before. This is now part of the market. This is the market deal, right? Mm-hmm. I only think that we might see something similar to that again if it's more of a luring type of contract where they can lure someone. And when do we ever see a player of his stature, maybe that's not a good word, of his ability to obviously perform and be successful, mm-hmm. be available in such a, why? I mean, if he's so good and everyone's looking for franchise quarterbacks, why is he available? Right? We don't mm-hmm. see that too often. It's kind of like Joe Burrow. And since it's like Cincinnati said, Joe Burrow, we're done. You go elsewhere. Well, if I'm elsewhere, I'm doing whatever the heck I can to get Joe Burrow, right?
Right.
Or anyone in that light. Mm-hmm. So I only see that happening again if there's a team that desperately wants a particular player who happens to be available. It's just not something that we see. It's a unicorn here, Dan. Right. Now agents though are going to be like, they're counting their money thinking this is what the next, thing's going to be. So it's got to come from ownership, got to come from the GM saying, we're not doing that at all. And I hope that's what happens, because otherwise this is going to turn into, craziness.
Right. Yeah. I think that it'll be interesting to see with kind of like with the Mahomes deal where it's like $500 million, but obviously, and all the contracts, are inflated with like void years and all this special
What
language.
Is this, right? Void years. Yeah. That's the term of the month. Void years.
Yeah.
Where did this come from? And how can New Orleans be behind $70-something million in cap and then turn around and be able to sign Drew Brees to, like
throwing make believe years that don't actually exist in
Yeah, we all need to go to salary cap school.
Yeah, right.
Apparently.
But
anyway.
But with, do you think that even with QBs that when their time comes to get re-upped with their current teams, isn't that a possibility now where, you have someone like I don't know, what's a guy coming up, like a Herbert or even a Burrow, they mm-hmm. look at the Deshaun's deal and be like, hey, Burrow made it to a Super Bowl already. Right. Is he going to say like, hey, if Watson can get a fully guaranteed deal, I don't need all this void year, nonsense.
This is where a player kind of needs to trump his agent and say, mm-hmm. I want to be paid what I'm worth. I think but ultimately that's what this kind of comes down to. And I want to make more than this guy who I'm better than, right? They kind of want that. Mm-hmm. Now in the NFL, we all know that there can be restructures all the time. We see it all the time. What they really get paid is their guaranteed money. Mm-hmm. So if guaranteed money, I think is going to be a big thing going forward, but I don't know about $230 million worth of guaranteed money, right? Yeah. So I don't know. It's the next big contract. We're gonna find out for sure if this is a thing or not, or mm-hmm. if that was like I said, a unicorn in terms of salary cap negotiation.
Right. But like you said before, it exists now. It's a thing that other mm-hmm. agents can tangibly look at and say, here, this is the contract that this guy got.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Cleveland.
Right? When he wasn't the best circumstances. And honestly, on a player's perspective, they don't really, they have to do what's best for them. They're not going to care what the cap situation is for their team. The situation shows that if you can't pay me, someone else is going to.
And if I could say one thing though, I think players ultimately want to win. Money's important, but they want to win. They want that ring. I would think that ring over money, maybe that's a little bit 50-50, but they have to understand that in order to win, you got to have the cap spread evenly. On defense and offense, you got to have the offensive line, the defensive line, the receivers, the running backs, everybody, right? If the quarterback is taking so much of that money, this is how the Tom Brady thing all worked in New England, right? Because he took lesser money because he knew that it was going to be spread well amongst the other areas of the team.
Right.
So, that's why we don't really see often a Super Bowl winning team, from like a quarterback who is being paid bukus of millions of dollars. No, we usually see it from someone who's at the tail end of their rookie year or their rookie deal, and is not like a huge cap hit for their team. So like if you got a quarterback on a 5-year deal on his rookie deal because he was a first round pick or whatever, right? You've got 5 years of a window to not have to pay him $30 million a year.
Right.
And that's kind of what we're seeing. And I don't know. The whole capology of everything is really kind of fascinating.
It is.
And if this is going to result in more craziness, then shoot, I don't know. I don't know what the NFL is gonna do, but I did not like that contract. But I'm sure he did.
$230 million guaranteed no matter what. I mean, but Pandora's box is open, like you said. It's there now. It depends on what the next round of QBs want to do when it's time for them to resign or go somewhere. We have to see, is it important for them to maybe take a little less or give even the team like flexibility cap wise so they can sign more pieces around them to win, or are they going to go for that? I want that $170 to $200 million guaranteed. I don't really, it's about money for me, and the cap is your problem, not mine. So we should see how which way they go.
Well, and as long as there's one team that's willing to do it, that's all that matters.
Yep.
And the teams that aren't, well, guess what? They're left holding the football.
That's it. Yeah. When a team, these teams that have perennially been, bottom of the barrel teams like the Detroits and Jacksonville's that perennially have like a $70 million like cap space, do they go now and just say, hey, hey, Aaron Rodgers or whoever, here's $250 million guaranteed, come like that? That's certainly a thing now. Like that's a thing that the teams with the most cap space can use as a tool that other teams won't be able to match.
Yep.
So the last thing before we go, now that the QB carousel seemed to calm down, there are a couple of players that seem to be, without a seat, and that being Jimmy Garoppolo and Baker Mayfield. I actually was finished writing an article today about where I think Baker's going to go, but I'll save that. It's a little teaser. But what do you do as for if you're Baker now? Like you have an $18 million contract, you're in a 5th-year option, so you're in the last year of your deal. The team's going to have to trade and pay you a new deal. You're going to want a new deal, obviously. Is it worth, where teams are now? There are not many options for teams that have an open, quarterback slot, and 2 are in a position to where having Baker would make sense from a competitive standpoint. What do you think?
Well, Baker has the price tag versus Jimmy Garoppolo. Plus, and both Garoppolo and Baker are dealing with shoulder injuries. Go figure. Garoppolo just had surgery recently, and he's got a 4-month-long recovery period, which is why teams and San Francisco is probably saying, don't do anything yet. Let's wait. We got to wait. Teams are going to want to know the medicals of what's going on with him. Not to mention his $24.2 million salary versus Baker's, which is like $7 million less.
Yeah.
In my opinion, Baker Mayfield is the easier one to acquire in that regard. So I think he'll be moved first versus Garoppolo, who could be of interest. Maybe Seattle. Baker Mayfield's already mentioned, hey, I'd like Seattle. I'd love Seattle. Seattle, hello, I'm available. So that's a possibility. But again, I mean, Baker also is dealing with that shoulder injury that he is non-throwing shoulder, but still, it's something to be concerned about. And could the right coach kind of open him up? Yeah, I definitely think that. Especially the right personnel and the right type of offense. I'm not sure he had that with Cleveland.
Right.
So I think there's more of an interest in Baker than there is Garoppolo. I think we've seen what Garoppolo can do. We kind of have to throw away the term, maybe he's got potential to be this, because we've already seen him, what he can do. Now, is he the type of game manager, not make mistakes type of quarterback? Yes, he is. But he also has a really tough situation in terms of his cap, his contract situation. It's most likely looking like he might be kind of still stuck in San Francisco, at least for a while, until he figures out his shoulder, for one. Or maybe in training camp, a quarterback gets hurt, and then perhaps San Francisco could deal him. But I'm not sure. I really don't know about that, but I would think that Baker would be the quarterback that would be taken ahead of Garoppolo.
Right. I think it's just such a unique situation, because usually when you bring in like a star quarterback like they did with Deshaun Watson, usually the incubate guy is dealt in that deal, and he wasn't. Yeah, so he's just sitting there now. They signed Jacoby Brissett, I think, as a backup. So it's clear they have no need for Baker anymore at all. So now he's basically just sitting, waiting for someone to hopefully come in and rescue him.
He's a chip.
Third string. Yeah, that's
he's a chip right now in their bargaining process.
Right.
So yeah, I think he'll be dealt soon, maybe even before the draft.
Yeah, I think so as well. I just think the price is going to go down. Everyone knows the Browns can't keep him, so there's no one's going to be trading a premium pick or anything of value for him.
And at $18 million, that's not a bad deal for quarterbacks in this day and age of NFL. $18 million is not bad. You could pay that. Heck, that's what. Who am I thinking? Was Darnold $18 million? He might have been last year. But still, that's much cheaper than some other quarterbacks that aren't as good as Baker Mayfield.
Right. Yeah, with all the dead money, cap hits and premium draft position you see trading away for quarterbacks right now, getting Baker on a deal where you can even resign him and even lower that 18 million cap hit.
Yeah,
if you wanted to.
If you wanted to.
Right. I just don't see a team that right now is willing to do that. Maybe outside of Seattle, but they seem to be content for rebuilding right now with Locke. But we'll see.
We're running out of teams, though.
We are. That. It's getting the musical chairs. There's very few chairs left.
That's right.
Very like one. We're down to one chair, and there's three people dancing around.
Unless like a team arises like Detroit, which I still don't think Detroit's going to go quarterback in the draft here at 2. That's another topic altogether.
Right.
I think the Giants are happy right now with Daniel Jones. I mean, New Orleans has Jameis Winston. Tampa now has Tom Brady. I mean, literally the opportunities are dwindling.
Right. Yeah. And is Baker
at least for a starter position.
Right. Is Baker enough of an upgrade over those guys to warrant trading for him? And he isn't. He really isn't.
Yeah. Right.
So we'll see. We'll see how that.
An interesting thing also is what happens if San Francisco outright releases Garoppolo? Then that could be interesting. I think they would
Seattle
have to
probably
do that.
signs him, honestly. Seattle will sign him immediately.
Most likely, unless they already went and got their Baker, right?
Right, unless they already traded. But they could also be – Seattle could also just be waiting until one of those guys, maybe get released, because everyone can see that, they can't – those guys aren't the future of their team, so they're just waiting it out. They don't have any leverage. So, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But that will do it for this episode of Every Day is Draft Day. Thank you so much, Jeff, for filling in on such short notice. We had a wonderful conversation about the QB anarchy that was happening this past week. Why don't you let everyone know where they can find you?
Yep, you can find me on Twitter at Jeff Haseley. You can also see my work at footballguys.com. I do some writing for Panthers SI. Oh boy, and let's see. That's pretty much about the size of it. But yeah, all my work can be found at Football Guys. Doing lots of rankings and stuff right now. Kind of low on the articles due to off season. That kind of picks up for me a little bit after the draft. But always doing some sort of dynasty something or other, whether that's, rankings or if I'm doing drafts, that kind of thing. But yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it, Dan.
Absolutely. It's a lot of fun. You can find me on Twitter at EagleDanFF. All my stuff is on Champions Round. So we'll see you guys later this week. We'll be running the second half of our rookie mock draft. So be sure to check out for that. And as always, have a good week.